Welcome back to the Caregiver Minute, where every weekday family and professional caregivers gather to refine their skills, gain inspiration, and prepare to serve. I regularly talk about the vital 5 pillars here on the Caregiver Minute, 5 key principles that good dementia care technique derives from. Well, the L in vital reminds us that life history is our most important tool because it gives us 2 things, context and identity. People living with dementia are just responding in the moment in so many cases, and understanding how they're interpreting the context really depends on their past life history. And identity matters because we really need to communicate with people in ways consistent with how they see themselves. Well, to illustrate this, I'll tell you about an experience that I had many years ago with a gentleman named Jim, who was from Chicago, and he loved everything about Chicago. He was a fun guy to be around. But occasionally he would get pretty irritated. Like one day, right around dinner time, when his wife and daughter had brought him back from a medical appointment, got him situated at the dining room table, and then they left to go do other things. I had been leading a poetry group in our activity room with our residents, and I was escorting many of them to come back to the dining area and get ready for the meal. When I walked in that dining room, Jim looked angry, which was totally unlike him. It was very out of character. And so I walked up to him and kind of played the role of the long-lost friend. And as I approached him, he still seemed irritated. And I said, "Jim, you seem upset." He said, "I am," as he pounded his fist on the table. "Where's my wife and daughter?" Well, I knew they had just been there and dropped him off, but I wasn't sure what he was perceiving, so I punted. I said, "Well, they're running an errand." And he said, "I don't care. They're supposed to be here." As I reflected on his life history, I recalled that when that particular daughter became an adult, she still lived at home for several years, and she worked as a school teacher. And she and his wife and Jim would all go to work during the day, and they'd come back at the end of the day, and generally they were all so tired that none of them wanted to cook, so they'd go out to eat. And I looked around the dining area in our memory care community, and I realized, wow, this looks just like a restaurant. You've got all these 4 top tables. You have people going around setting things up. Jim thinks he's in a restaurant, and his dinner guests haven't shown up. By leveraging what I knew from his life history, I was able to understand something about how he was interpreting that context. And then the question became, well, what would you do if you ran into a good friend at a restaurant, and he was upset because his dinner guests hadn't arrived? And so I said, how do you like that? You come to a nice place to eat, and your dinner guests don't even show up. And he started to calm down. He said, I know, right? And I said, you know what I'm going to do if they don't show up in the next 2 minutes? He looked at me kind of wide-eyed, and I said, I'm eating their food. He said, that's right. Have a seat, have a seat. He always repeated himself twice. Well, I sat down, and we started talking, and the staff brought his food, and he began eating, and I needed to go do other things. So I excused myself to go use the restroom. That's the most common reason you'd have to leave the table in a restaurant. And on my way out, I told the staff, Jim's care plan says that he can have an O'Doul's, fake beer, and peanuts. That's his favorite snack. And I said, if he gets upset again, why don't you just be the apologetic wait staff who is very sorry that his guests haven't shown up. They really feel bad about the inconvenience. And you give him a beer and some nuts on the house. Well, I found out later that's exactly what happened. And it really calmed him down. It helped him avoid the distress that otherwise would have a lot of people saying, what kind of medication can we give this guy to calm him down? That's not the type of problem that medication will do anything about. By the time as-needed medication even would kick in, Jim would likely be past a moment like that. It's better to leverage something like life history to recognize what's really going on there in Jim's world and to steer from his point of view in a way that acknowledges both his life history and how he sees himself. So today, I hope you'll consider how knowing something about the people or person that you're serving can give you insight into how they're interpreting the situation and can help you through some of those tough moments. Thanks for watching. I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow for another episode of the Caregiver Minute.